Hello, everyone. Welcome to another 5 Elements of Success Player Development Series episode. Hey, we're live here from Crystal Springs Resort in Hamburg, New Jersey. We're so excited about this show. We're going to help you not be surprised by some of your scores out there, maybe under pressure coming down the stretch. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show. So before we get started, just make sure that you guys want to keep it interactive. Let's make sure that you're sending in your questions, concerns, comments to YouTube chat or 5 Elements at the Golf Performance Center. We'd love to hear from you so we can help you reach your ultimate goals and playing your best golf and being your best self. So again, thanks for tuning in. Tyler, let's go. Last week we talked about putting under pressure and those things. So
yeah, we had a great episode last week, guys. If anybody has missed any previous episodes, they're available on juniorgolfhub.com/5elements, and they're also available on the Golf Performance Center YouTube page. Last week we covered the 5 principles of putting. We had one of our collegiate athletes, Jay Milch, on the show, and Dennis was taking him through a few different drills to work on finding the right line, working on some speed control, and also the path of the club head. What I found really interesting was Dr. Josh Brandt, our clinical psychologist, working on target awareness and, just being an athlete and really focusing on the target and what we want the result to be. So, if I was just going to throw you a ball, I wouldn't think about how to do it. I would just step up and toss it to you. So some interesting things there that kind of get us back to our athletic roots, and hopefully that helped you improve your putting.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for the recap, Tyler. And we're going to...
Surprise!
Whoa.
Did I surprise you guys?
Yeah.
Remember, you got to be ready on the golf course in those pressure situations.
Whoa, up here on the roof. What a great intro there. And this is Dennis Hillman, our director of coaching there. And we don't want you to be surprised, just like we were almost shook off the roof here at Crystal Springs by Dennis Hillman jumping in. But make sure that you're ready and prepared for your tournament. So I think that's one of the big part of this episode, Dennis. So, hey, wow, what a intro. So thanks for stopping in.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tyler, Dr. Brent, and I, we've got a couple videos here for you guys to look at and just talking about everything that goes into being prepared and really what you can do in the moment in those pressure situations to give yourself the best chance at success. So go ahead and enjoy this video here.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. We're here at the Golf Performance Center on our tee line. I'm joined by Tyler Camel, Director of Performance here, and Dr. Josh Brandt, our sports psychologist. We are talking today about performing under pressure, hitting those shots under key pressure situations. So obviously there's a lot that goes into it, all the years of building up and building your skills, getting your equipment right, all the preparation that leads up to that day of, to getting yourself prepared to perform at your best. But today we're going to focus on in the moment. What are the things that you can do in the moment to increase your chances of success? So I'm going to talk to Tyler here first. So Tyler, what do you see on the physical side? What are the important things that you can do in the moment?
Well, obviously the months and I guess years leading up to it, we're trying to ingrain movement patterns that are repeatable and, like we talked about last week, automaticity and making those motions automatic. But a lot of emotion that we feel on the day of, we have a lot of nervous energy potentially when we're playing in tournaments. And so, we really want to focus on a good, solid, dynamic warm-up, dispersing that nervous energy, throughout and kind of using it to our advantage, if you will, as opposed to kind of holding it all tense. The thoughts start to go through our minds. So when you hear about these guys on tour who might be working out prior to a major, right? I think Rory McIlroy, Brooks Koepka, there's been articles written about how they've worked out before their round at a major event. That workout might not necessarily be as intense as maybe an off-season workout that we're going through, but it has physiological benefits in the sense that it's dispersing that nervous energy for us. There's some other physical benefits that physical strategies that we can use during the round, which we'll get into here in a minute. But prior to the round, I think it's very important to go through a good, solid, dynamic warm-up to use that nervous energy to your advantage.
That's great. As you said, a lot of physiological advantages. And so, Dr. Brandt, what do you see? Obviously, a lot of advantages on the mental side as well there, right?
Yeah, well, to pick up on what Tyler was talking about, too, there's no better way to reduce stress than to relax your body, right? The opposite of relaxation is stress. And our nervous system actually is designed to be in one state or the other. Another kind of playful way to think about it is it's really impossible to be both relaxed and stressed at the same time, right? In our nervous system, we have a sympathetic nervous system, which is really responsible for that stress response, that fight, flight, or freeze response. And then we have the parasympathetic part of our nervous system. And what that does, that actually starts to try to lessen that stress, because if we're in a stress state for too long, actually, we would die. Obviously not on a golf course, but if someone is in a stress state for years and years and years, that's what leads to things like heart disease. But really, one of the easiest ways to manage stress is to breathe. to relax, right? That's what we want to do. When we're under stress, we often breathe through our chest, and we're really tight and short and choppy. But when we're we're in a relaxed state, what we do is we actually breathe in a slow, smooth, rhythmic state, right? So that's something we always want to be mindful, whether it's pre-tournament, right? We always want to start to be thinking about how to relax. Where are we? Are we stressed? Are we anxious? And if we are, we want to bring our body to a relaxed state. When we're in a relaxed state, we have a tendency to perform much better. We think better, we make better decisions, we're less impulsive, we're less tense. And it's really probably one of the most fundamental things we need to pay attention to when we're talking about dealing with stress, and whether it's before a tournament or even over a big shot.
Yeah, really interesting.
Totally
so it's cyclical. So you're saying that some of those mental advantages actually come right back and can help you perform better on the physical side.
Yeah, I mean, physiologically, we've all been in that situation where our throat tightens up, whether we're in an interview, or we've got to go talk to a teacher after school about a bad grade or whatever it might be. You get a little nervous, and those physiological responses can really be handled with breathing. And so in the gym, we'll spend a lot of time working on just how to breathe properly. Yeah. And you might not be sweating bullets at the end of that particular workout. But it has tremendous benefit when we are in those pressure situations on the golf course in competition.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So guys, there's a lot more to it out there than just getting your swing right or just getting your equipment right. Definitely make sure you're spending time and energy getting educated on the physical side, on the mental side, how those things can help you be better prepared in the moment to perform under pressure.
Hey guys, that was a great segment, Dennis, talking about what you can do in the moment and how we handle those situations. But before we get into live discussion about that, I want to go back. I got so surprised by you jumping in. I forgot about our pop quiz. So, our pop quiz this week is, where are we? Where are we filming this week? Send in your answers. Your name will be drawn out of the hat, and you'll win a head cover, a junior golf head cover. So please enter that. Where we are, beautiful Crystal Springs Resort. Maybe I just gave you an answer. I don't know. Hamburg, New Jersey. But let's see your response there. Okay. So Dennis, getting back to the discussion of how we're going to handle pressure in the moment. So give us some things or takeaways that we want to have from that video, if you will.
Yeah, I think what you heard there, Tyler talked a bit about physical. There were physiological aspects, mental aspects. So there's a lot of things that go into what you can do in the moment, and really things that you can work on, skills you can build and prepare. Make it part of your practice plan so that you're more prepared in the moment.
I would totally second that. Just really focus on breathing, guys. Breathing is something that we overlook, but it really controls our physiological response when we're feeling that pressure, anywhere throughout your round, really.
Yeah, and one of the things we try to do, too, is talk about those that warm-up, how important that is before you go out for your round, and burning off some of that extra energy or maybe that those anxious moments or nervousness now. So we want to make sure that we're ready for that as well. And that
100%.
kind of relaxes us physiologically and neurologically.
Totally. Well, Dennis, we got another video coming up. What do we got?
Yeah, we've got another video with one of our collegiate players, Jake Sullivan. So we're going to kind of put this into practice and talk to Jake about his experiences in performing under pressure and some of the things he's done to have more success there.
All right, guys, so we're here on the tee line with one of our collegiate players, Jake Sullivan. He's been competing for 6-7 years in competition and really spending a lot of time and energy trying to understand the mental side better through his journaling and stats and reflections. So we're going to talk to Jake about his experiences of performing under pressure and some of the keys, and he may have some questions for Tyler, Dr. Brent, and myself. So Jake, talk to us about some of your experiences of performing under pressure and some things that you've noticed or maybe you've struggled with.
So, gentlemen, thanks again for having me. Appreciate it. And so I'm coming from a basketball background, and it's a very fluid sport, a sport that relies heavily on instinct, and it's quick. So coming to golf for me was a very, it was a big difference. And so I had a really hard time at first not getting stuck technically, between shots, not, hammering down, thinking about, okay, this is what I have to do in order to hit a good golf shot. So I'd say this has been the first year, 6 months, 8 months, where I've been able to really think about what I want to do with my golf shot, react to the situation, react to the environment, instead of being very technical and deliberate out on the golf course. And that's transitioned into my play. So I guess a question for you would be, how do we break a junior golfer from being overly technical too soon and having them understand that they're still playing a sport first, rather than playing golf swing instead of golf?
Yeah, awesome. So great. So that's great awareness, right? So Now, you may be aware of that to some extent out there, that you do that as well. Obviously, Jake, it's taken a lot of years and a lot of reflection to really get to the point where he's very aware of his mind going to the technical focus rather than, connecting to the target that Dr. Brandt can talk about. On my side, I would say, Jake, that I think a lot of preparation, obviously the technical work should lead into swing feels that you have ingrained and swing feels that you rely on. So it's not so much thought or trying to understand technique cognitively. It's just a simple swing feel that you feel you can rely on in the moment, right?
Yeah, I agree, and I think we talked about this last week, this idea of being connected to target. Well, there's actually nothing wrong with being technical, right? We always want to be working on our technique. Technique is something we want to continue to improve. Even the best players in the world are constantly working on their technique. So Jake, when you ask about as a junior, is it okay to be focused on technique? Absolutely. However, there also needs to be practice time put into connecting that technique to a target. And once a player starts to practice connecting technique to a target, that's when you start to see those performance goals start to really be hit.
Absolutely, Dr. Brandt. And I think, one thing that we have the benefit of here in the Northeast is kind of, I don't want to say shutting down. In a sense, we're ramping up the focus on the technical side in the winter, where we're trying to ingrain those new motion patterns before taking them into, adding speed to the motion, taking it to the tee line in the spring, then maybe to a casual round, then maybe to competition. And so, that process of learning a skill and gradually progressing the level of pressure that it's under and executing it is a process that takes time. And so, Jake's obviously, he was in our junior academy as a, what was it, a sophomore in high school you came in, Jake? And, now he's a collegiate player. So he's been working on this for many years, and understanding that just doesn't happen overnight. Learning a skill, in practice, and then immediately taking it to competition and expecting it to be successful. That goes back to managing expectations, which we talked about in episode 1 of this whole series. So
yeah, absolutely. So and guys, I know we've talked about 9-ball flights and practicing that and how important that is. But what can come of that? One of the benefits of doing that and working on all the different shots is really identifying something that you're maybe more proficient at, or what we call a go-to shot. So that's something that you can rely on under pressure. I know Jake has worked on a lot. So I think what we're going to do now is we're going to have Jake just take us through his routine and hit that go-to shot for us. So Jake, let's say you've got, what, a 6 or 7 iron there?
7 iron.
Yeah, you've got a 7 iron. So let's say it's kind of your stock distance.
Okay.
And it's one of those situations where you could play a draw, you could play a fade, you can kind of do what you want, but it's a pressure situation. What would be your go-to shot?
So for me, it's a chippy cut. All I have to do to hit that shot is I take my backswing, I just get as much weight into my left side as I can, and I just get down and through it.
Okay.
So going to my routine, for every part of the game, I have a different trigger. So for my full swing, I start thinking about my shot and what I want to do. I come in, I take a sip of water. That'll do it for the show, right? And I come back behind the ball. So before I take my sip of water, I'll do my technical swings like we talked about. I'll rehearse kind of what I want to be doing, what it is. Then I come back behind the ball. I assess the lie, I assess the wind. So I'm going to hit my little chippy cut here. So it's going to be about a 165-yard shot, and it's just going to fall right. So I'm going to come in. I see a cut, so I'm going to put the shaft line right on line with where I want this ball to fall. And then I'm going to start walking into it. I just have to make sure I get very comfortable over the golf ball. So this is a big situation, big time scenario. I got to pull this off, right? So I just got to make sure I'm just in here very comfortable connecting to the target. And I used to be very stagnant over the golf ball, but now I try and move a lot to create some more rhythm and some more better tempo that transitions into the golf swing. So here we go. That's more of a chippy pull, but you guys get the idea.
You were nervous, man.
I was.
Under pressure.
Listen, there were so many great things about what Jake was just talking about. And one of the reasons we need a go-to shot is, and I know we asked him to be on the show. There's some stress in that. And he did a great job, right? The automaticity protects us, buffers us from stress. So the more that you can have that go-to shot, even though that wasn't the ideal chippy cut, it actually was a playable shot. And when you're under pressure, you need to be able to have something that's so well rehearsed that it is impervious to stress. So I think that was one of the really important things that I saw, that even in a pressure situation, he was still able to execute.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So guys, as you saw and heard from Jake, obviously a collegiate player, a little farther along than you guys might be in your journey, but he's really owned his process. He can explain it really well. He can execute it. Maybe he didn't pull that shot off exactly perfectly, but as Dr. Brandt said, it's playable. So, it takes a lot of time and energy, a lot of preparation, a lot of hard work, in all areas, all the 5 elements of success to get to where in the moment you can execute under pressure.
Yeah, and I wanted to follow up with one other thing, that one of the great things about talking with Jake, and you could even hear it, is how self-aware he was. He even in the face of stress, he was able to identify it. Something that's so important for an athlete, to be mindful of what they're up to, be able to take action in the face of it. And I think one of the other things I like about Jake, and I've known him for a little while, is this idea that he will rise to the occasion. In the face of a stressful situation, he sees it as an opportunity to succeed. And I think identity is another big part of being able to perform under stress, right? When you're faced with a really stressful situation, the best players in the world see that as an opportunity to rise, to shine, to perform well, to be competitive. It's the ordinary average player that sees that as an intimidating situation where they don't perform their best. So that's another thing that you really want to consider when you're standing over an important shot is, who am I going to be in this shot? Am I going to be someone who's going to rise to the occasion, or am I going to be someone who is going to fall?
Fantastic. Guys, you heard it right there. So seek out those situations, right? We asked Jake today. He could have said yes or no. He said yes. I'll get on camera, put myself under pressure because I know I'll learn something from it. So seek out those situations and you'll be better for it.
Okay, guys, we just saw a great video there with Jake Sullivan and Dennis Hillman. The guy's going over, his pre-shot routine and what he does to get prepared to hit his shots. Something we're going to be doing here shortly as we go out to Ballyeo and play some golf ourselves. We're going to need to put that in practice, I'm sure. But
Absolutely.
Dennis, talk about what you guys gained from that. I know you guys have a perspective on it.
Yeah, Jake's been with us a long time. And what I saw is just somebody that really owned his routine. Obviously, put a lot of time and energy into really understanding and himself and becoming more self-aware about what are the key things that work for him. Some key things where he talked about a clear intention, a good connection to the target, and really just what worked for him. It doesn't have to be the same for everybody. And I thought he was really athletic over the golf ball too.
Yeah, that's really what I liked about his new routine, if you will. With that self-awareness, he noticed he was feeling pretty stiff, pretty rigid over the ball, very mechanical, almost too mechanical in a sense. And so, you saw there how he kind of started to be a little bit more athletic and kind of settle into the shot, as any athlete would, whether you're watching tennis, whether you're watching a shortstop in baseball. They're not standing there on their heels per se. So, again, this is working for him. Not saying it's going to work for you necessarily, but being self-aware, being athletic is something we can't stress enough.
Well, something in motion stays in motion. It's a little easier to get in motion. So when he gets that rigid feel there, it's really hard for him to get going.
Absolutely.
So I think that's been a really good improvement for him, and I think he said that as well as games improved and scores.
No question.
Drastically, yeah. So we have another video coming right up.
Yeah, we have another video. One of our junior academy members, Jonathan Oakes, and we're going to put him in a pressure situation, simulating one. Final hole of a tournament. So go ahead and take a look at it.
All right, guys.
We're
here. We've created a scenario with one of our junior members, Jonathan Oakes, in the bunker. So let's say you're on the last hole of a tournament. All right, you're tied for the lead in the middle of the fairway. You've got a 7-iron, right? Just your go-to 7-iron. You don't pull it off. You leave it in the right bunker, short-sided, really tough up and down. You know that walking up. You need to get up and down to get into a playoff, but it's going to be tough. So, Dr. Brandt, how would you look at this situation?
Yeah, so Jonathan, what are some of the things that a mentally weak golfer would be thinking about at this moment?
Well, they'd be thinking about the previous shot and just what could happen from this shot, maybe like blading it over the green or something.
Right, so they might be kind of stuck in the past. They might be worried about what happened before and then worrying about what might happen, right, in the future, and kind of allowing those two things to really get in the way of what needs to get done, right? So as a mentally strong golfer, as the mentally strong golfer that you are, what are some things that you might be thinking about here in this moment to make you more mentally tough, to not let the past or the present really interfere what needs to happen right now?
Well, you just have to forget about the previous shot and focus on what's in front of you, like what you need to do to execute the next shot. Just don't let those negative thoughts get in the way.
Yeah, so it's really kind of a recognition or maybe even a cognitive reframing. Right, you might have a tendency to start thinking about what happened before, what happened in the past, and start creating a story about how you blew this or kind of in the past how you failed. But really what we need to do to execute these type of shots is to really stay present and focus on this one shot that needs to happen.
All right, so we're going to let Jonathan perform under pressure here and go ahead and hit this bunker shot for us. Oh, well done. About 3 feet, so great shot. So how did you feel some pressure there?
Yeah,
a little bit of pressure, right? With everybody watching, right? The whole world watching here. And were you able to do those things that you talked about? Focus on landing spot and...
Yeah, I kind of visualized the shot in my mind. You know, what height I want. You know, I didn't want something too high because that's kind of hard to perform, especially since I had a lot of room to run the shot out with. And I think I executed it pretty well. It's right on line, so.
Yeah.
So, well thought out shot, right? Relied on the automaticity, right? That automatic sand shot that you've worked so hard on, right? Pick your landing spot, execute in the present, hit it to 3 feet, win your tournament.
Yeah, well done. Awesome. So guys, right, so some key concepts there. Definitely reframing, looking at it as an opportunity. As Jonathan explained really well, focusing on what you want to do, not what you don't want to do. These are all things you can work on, so make that part of your practice plan.
All right, guys, so you just saw another video there. Jonathan Oakes, one of our young players, and also Dennis going through a pressure situation in the bunker, green side, short side himself, pulled off a spectacular shot. I thought it was actually very interesting, Dennis. You said he actually did that the next day in a tournament.
Yeah, I did see him pull off a shot very similar to that. It got up and down on the toughest hole in the golf course. So, you know, that just that one rep really under pressure, I think really has a lot of benefits. So putting yourself in those situations is important. It was really great to hear his thinking, just how he framed things. So I think it's important to understand that you can build that habit of how you look at things in certain situations and just keep bringing that forward and building on that.
So reframing is a good way, and something I know we talk a lot about, and I know Dr. Brandt supports that from a psychological standpoint of it's not I played terrible or I suck, it's I didn't play as well as I like, or hey, this gives me an opportunity to hit this shot versus, oh my God, I blew it, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we know that you're going to have an emotional reaction. You may be upset, dejected, but just consciously just going through the process over and over, reframing how you could look at that in a positive light and how, you know, you can see the opportunity coming down the road. You know, it's just, again, a habit you want to build.
Yeah, and now we have another segment coming up where we have another young player. He's hitting his ball flights and learning how to shape the shots, but under pressure, do you have a go-to shot here? And I think that's what you guys are working on with Jake Porter.
Yeah, Jake's going to show us his go-to shot, and then we're just going to identify some tendencies. So how can you really work on that in practice, incorporate that into your practice so that you know, it holds up better under pressure?
All right, here we go, Val.
All right, guys, we're here with another one of our Junior Academy members, Jake Portugal, and we're going to work on that go-to shot, talk about that a little bit more. I know we talked to Jake Sullivan about it and how he uses that low chippy cut, and he can rely on that under pressure. But how do you get to that point where you have that go-to shot that you can count on under those pressure situations? You've got to have the right forms of practice. So we're going to go through a random practice here, hitting different clubs to different targets and hitting that all-important go-to shot. So Jake, what is your go-to shot with an iron?
Dead straight.
All right, so Jake has picked dead straight out of the 9 ball flights. He likes the hardest one, right? The straight shot. So we're going to go ahead and, what club do you have there, Jake?
8 iron.
All right, so he's got an 8 iron. Hit one to that first left flag on the left side, Jake. Okay, so he hung that out to the right a little bit. All right, so these are things you just want to track and log. Okay, so 8 iron to that flag went right. So let's hit a 5 iron, Jake, to the flag out there on the right side now. Same go-to straight shot. Okay, so 5 iron went a little bit left. So as you go through and change clubs and go to different targets, you know, see what shows up. So you're going to want to master that first here in practice. You can introduce some pressure in practice, maybe make it a competition with friends or invite people over and say, here's the shot I'm going to hit. So see if you can put it under different levels of stress and really have something that you own under pressure.
Okay, so you just saw another segment there with Jay going, working on his go-to shot. So Dennis, what was a good takeaway from that episode of that video?
Yeah, I think it's, again, there's a lot of things you can do in the moment, which is really important to understand, but there's a whole build-up to, how you own something in the moment. So incorporating a go-to shot, first identifying, incorporating it into your practice, putting it under some kind of stress in practice with, fellow juniors or, people that you play with, and just kind of simulating those pressure situations and see how well it holds up. You can start to identify any weaknesses or, chinks in the armor. And just build it into your practice plan.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer. And I think one of the things out there, too, you want to make sure that you know, and this goes to you, Tyler, which is the physical limitations that you may have may shape what your go-to shot is. So understand where you are and what you have, I think is really key.
I was just going to say it takes time. This doesn't necessarily happen overnight. Determining what your go-to shot is. We use the word, the fancy word we've been kind of using and joking around about the past few weeks, automaticity.
Yeah.
What can you control? What becomes automatic? And ingraining those movements physically over time is really going to help make that repeatable when pressure's on the line and you're just thinking about, performing at the highest level you can.
Yeah, and to that fact, though, we also have to, understand that where we are is where we are in the moment, not necessarily, I know we're striving to be better in developing those new movement patterns, but the reality is our body, our brain is going to go to the least path of resistance. So we know that we're going to have a limitation. We're going to find that. So don't fight against it, work with it. And I think that's going to be something that you'll benefit from trying to get your go-to shot as a young junior player. As a developing player, we want to continue working towards what your ultimate goal is being able to control the golf ball at all situations. So again, hopefully that was helpful out there. So we're going to turn it over now to our question and answer segment. So I think, Meg, we have some questions.
I do. I struggle with being nervous on the first tee. How can I overcome that?
First tee jitters.
Yeah, great question. I think we all feel it. It's all, we hope we have that for the rest of our lives. But how do you talk to your junior players?
I think you made probably the most important point is that, whether it's Tiger Woods, Jack Nicklaus, some of the legends of the game, they really, they would even say they rely on those nerves. It means you care, it means you've prepared, it means something to you, and so there's nothing wrong with that. So I think it's really just, again, having, habits that you build and forms of practice so that you can channel that energy, and it's really back to the bell curve, the Yerkes-Dodson, I believe, bell curve that Dr. Brandt talked about. It's there is an optimum range. It's not, resting heart rate is probably not where you're going to play your best. So just kind of accepting and channeling that energy can really help you.
Yeah, embrace it.
I would just say, again, back to the breathing, that's one thing that will help you control it. Don't shy away from feeling those, emotions and the nerve, because you might be surprised how you step up. But breathing can certainly help you kind of stay in the moment and stay controlled physiologically.
Yeah, and learning from it. Learn something, lean into that obstacle, those nerves. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Okay, next question. I'm excited because I've been able to get myself in contention in a few tournaments. Any advice on how to close it out? My nerves seem to take over.
Oh, wow, another good question. Something we see quite often, especially with young players and maybe a few older players too in club championships.
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, and congratulations just for even getting into contention in those tournaments, and continue to play, as we've talked about, continue to play those same level tournaments and try to get into contention more often. It's like anything, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. So, a lot of great players had a history of choking or whatever you want to call it, struggling under pressure, and they just kept coming back, kept preparing, motivated them even more to get in those situations and eventually overcome and pull it off.
Yeah, as Dustin Johnson was saying, obviously he just had an incredible week this past weekend, in his score, but he's had some major failures, and as they would call it, chokes. I mean, 3-putting from 8 feet on the U.S. Open, and the error that he had in the PGA Championship, but he overcame those because he embraced that. Hey, that's just part of the learning process for him.
Yeah, I mean, I really just let it drive you and motivate you to work harder and come back just that little bit more prepared. You're obviously very close, so just keep at it.
Love it. Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, thanks for those questions out there. We're going to get to our pop quiz answer. So, where in the world are we this week? So the answer is Crystal Springs, and I think we have a winner. James Mackey. All right, James. Thanks.
James Mack.
Thanks for participating and putting your name in and putting that answer in. So thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you on continued episodes. So again, thanks so much for all of you guys out there watching. We appreciate your attendance. Again, we need to have more interaction. Please write in, call in, make comment, and then next week we're going to be talking back to school. Time, golf, activities, all those things, your time management is going to be critical. So we want to make sure that we can help you manage that time as well. And with that being said, I want to say thanks to our sponsors, Ethan Allen Preparatory, achieving your greatness in the classroom, on the golf course, and in life. And as always, our Junior Golf Hub, that app, download the app, put that in your pocket. Make sure you have all those thousands of coaches in your pocket, schools, so you can research, find the right fit for you, and we can help you enjoy your journey and find, what you're looking for out there in a college experience. Okay? So again, thanks for tuning in. Guys, thanks so much. It was great. And we're going to go play some golf, so you guys hopefully get out there and play some golf as well. Enjoy your journey. Let's get after it.